fueled by the desert heat and moisture from faraway oceans.
During a quiet afternoon, a lazy sky gathers. Clouds darken, blotting out the sun.
A flash of light catches the eye. Thunder rumbles across the land.
The sweeping clouds explode and rain crashes down, overwhelming the dry desert.
Our first responders are called into action. Where there is need, they stand in harm's way.
The annual battle with Mother Nature has begun.
This is Monsoon 2021, and we are Arizona's Weather Authority.
Our job this summer, keeping you ahead of the monsoon.
From afternoon dust that signals the start of storms,
to the mornings when record rain brings traffic to a halt.
We assess the overnight damage with first responders.
And we've got you covered with our forecast to see when the next storm is moving in.
But first, you have to have a monsoon, and last year, the monsoon failed across the state. Very little rain. And in central Arizona, it was the driest monsoon in 40 years.
It would be really hard to have a worse monsoon season than we had last year.
That's Dan Hens, a meteorologist at County Flood Control. He says last year's monsoon fail was on a scale they've never seen before. This is the monsoon data from Sky Harbor Airport over the last 10 years, but Hens is able to look deeper.
And when you actually look at all the gauges as a whole, it actually shows over the last 5 years, we've been right around average, 2 above, 2 below, and then we have, of course, this outlier last year. No matter how you look at it, it was really, really dry. It was a failure.
And according to state climatologist Nancy Sellover, the monsoon fail was not limited to the valley.
It failed around the entire state. Basically, things didn't set up to where the circulation pattern was bringing the warm, moist air up from Mexico across most of the state. And so we were getting northerly flow a lot of the time, and that's a dry flow, and it doesn't provide anything to kick off those thunderstorms.
But Sellover also points out that perhaps the worst part of the missing monsoon was that the wildfire season never ended in Arizona.
It is critical for that, and we're concerned this year because last year it never came, it never stopped. The fire seasons kind of continued all the way through. We had a few rain events and stuff, and for some places of the state that was enough because the temperatures went down. But now we're moving into the dry period again.
But even in the valley, the summer rains are important.
Water is probably the most important asset. I mean, we live in a desert, right? So every drop of water counts. The monsoon doesn't perform as well as expected. For us here in the Phoenix area, that's 30 to 50% of our yearly rainfall.
Flood Control's website operates 24/7. It's a pretty good source of real-time monsoon information.
You can tell if any of the washes are running around your neighborhood. So the data is there to help with actionable outcomes. So we're here to, again, help the people and protect the people from flooding around the county.
The new normals issued by the National Weather Service also show a big drop in the average amount of rain we can expect in the monsoon, down more than 10%. Another sign we're getting drier.
While the monsoon turned into a non-soon, we baked across Arizona. Dozens of all-time high heat records were smashed. Turns out the excessive heat is the biggest cause of weather-related deaths in Arizona. Last year, Phoenix had 145 days of temperatures at 100 degrees or greater, 53 days of highs at 110 or greater, and 14 days at 115 degrees or more. Each one was a record. When it was all said and done, 2020 went down as the hottest summer ever recorded for Phoenix. The casualties from the heat are no comparison to other weather-related threats. Over the past decade in Arizona, while 13 people died from lightning and 35 people died from floods, nearly 3,100 people died from the heat. We've learned the harsh lesson that the impact of the scorching desert temperatures are not to be ignored.
All right, so let's break down our summer storm season. Let's start with the word monsoon. It literally means season or seasonal wind shift. It's the time of year when our winds shift and we see a dramatic change in our weather patterns. First of all, our winter-spring jet stream goes well up to the north, and all that plentiful sunshine in June sets up what's called a thermal low. It's rising hot air. Meantime, a high-pressure ridge sets up shop up near the Four Corners area, and the clockwise circulation around the high picks up a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. The thermal low, counterclockwise rotation, picks up moisture from the Sea of Cortez, and all that steamy, sticky air meets right over Arizona, and when it happens, thunderstorms occur. In fact, our monsoon accounts for over a third of our yearly rainfall.
Well, no monsoon season is ever the same. So whether you're new to Arizona or a native like me, here's what you can expect.
They say it's a dry heat, and that's true until that monsoon pattern sets up. In July and especially August, you're going to notice it gets pretty humid around here, but that's the fuel for our thunderstorms. Thunderstorms are most common during the evening and nighttime hours around here, but don't let your guard down for morning storms, which we can sometimes get too. Strong winds, heavy rain, and lightning are our biggest threats. Get off the golf course or out of the pool if you hear thunder. You're likely close enough to get struck by lightning.
It's a good idea to check your windshield wipers before the season starts. Sometimes our intense summer heat can warp these, and then they won't work when you need them.
Another hazard on the road, dust storms. They can hit anytime but are most common in the evening, sometimes during that evening commute.
So be sure to pull off the road completely and turn off your lights if you're ever caught in one.
Those dust storms are usually near the beginning of monsoon season in June and July, since the land is more parched from months of dry weather. And in drought years like this one, we tend to see more dust storms than normal. After a dust storm, you'll want to stay inside for a bit because air quality isn't the greatest, and it's not a bad idea to then change your air filters at home too.
When we do finally get decent rain, flash flooding can be a real problem. In fact, if you ever see a barricade like this, don't try to drive around it. If you do and you get stuck, we have what's called Arizona's stupid motorist law. If you get stuck down there, you can get charged for that rescue. We've got a lot of desert washes that fill up during monsoon storms, but also a lot of spots in the city too, like this one here in Scottsdale. We're at the Indian Bend Greenbelt and Wash. It's an 11-mile stretch of grass, parks, and golf courses, all designed to fill up with floodwater during storms and keep that out of nearby neighborhoods.
By the way, it's not smart to swim in that water after a storm, as health experts say there's all sorts of bacteria and hazards inside. Speaking of swimming, your pool will need some extra TLC after big dust storms, and your trees might as well. It's a good idea to prune certain trees back right now in order to make them stronger for monsoon storms and their wind.
Strong winds can lead to power outages, so it's a good idea to have a couple of flashlights and fresh batteries on hand as we head into this season. If you want to know how long those power outages are going to last in your neighborhood, make sure you've got our AZ Family mobile app. That's where you can also get the latest radar, rainfall totals, and the latest forecast as we head into a busy season ahead.
It's a fascinating part of our summer monsoon, lightning. But not all lightning strikes are created equally. Some are worse than others if you're unlucky enough to get hit.
There are several types of lightning strikes. One kind is called a direct strike. The lightning comes directly from the sky and goes directly into your body. Now, it's not the most common type of lightning strike, but it can be potentially the deadliest.
The lightning strike hits you directly, you go into cardiac arrest and much less likely to survive.
Dr. Heitz Patel is the ER medical director of Banner Boswell.
I mean, it's a life-threatening, obviously incident, so definitely something to take very seriously.
Another type of strike is called ground current. That's where lightning strikes a tree and then the electricity radiates outward, eventually hitting a person standing nearby.
Ground current can travel through grass, patio with rebar, and water.
30 to 50% of lightning strikes occur indoors, which you wouldn't think, like, how are you going to get struck indoors?
When lightning strikes your home, through conduction, electricity travels through wires or metal plumbing. Avoid taking a shower or talking on corded phones during a storm. And while Dr. Patel says most people actually survive lightning strikes, many are left with long-term issues like insomnia, chronic headaches, cataracts, and more.
Memory, personality changes, things like that, because your brain chemistry can change. You can have injuries in your brain.
Still ahead, will Arizona see impressive summer storms or just a repeat of last year's monsoon? We'll share our monsoon forecast next.
Plus, the first sign a storm is heading your way is dust. We'll show you the latest technology on the market and how it will keep people safe.
You're watching an Arizona's Weather Authority special, Monsoon 2021. You're watching an Arizona's Weather Authority special, Monsoon 2021.
Time now for a monsoon fast fact. Did you know a dust storm can be a mile high and more than 100 miles wide? Wildfires dominated our headlines last summer because we all know our 2020 monsoon was pretty much a dud. But when looking back at why that happened, an interesting fact popped out, and it was something that we could actually see in the air all summer long. Last summer, it seemed every week we reported on different parts of our state that were on fire. It was even worse for our neighbors next door in California.
We woke up in the middle of the night and there were flames. We could see flames and we ran.
In fact, the Southwest region saw the most acres of land burned this century, over 1 million acres torched. And we could really see it in our sunsets. They might make pretty social media posts, but
the smoke actually helped to reduce the intensity of the monsoon, that we didn't get as much rain because of all the wildfires that we had over the west last year. And it actually does make sense.
And Dr. Randy Cerveny should know. The legendary ASU professor has seen it all from the Tempe campus, where he's been teaching since 1986. And he busted out the Play-Doh to take us through what is needed in our atmosphere to make raindrops fall.
In order to get it to rain, water doesn't collect around itself. It actually has to collect onto something. Dust and other things like smoke are what we call the seeds to a raindrop. In order for a raindrop to form, you've got to have something for the water to collect on. It doesn't collect on itself. So up on the top of the atmosphere, what we're going to have is water droplets that will start to form collect onto a dust particle. And as it does that, they get heavier. As they get heavier, they start to fall, and they're going to fall into other dust particles. As they fall down out of the cloud, they're going to fall as a big raindrop.
But too much smoke, like we had last year, is a problem.
The key with the smoke, in terms of causing a lack of rainfall, is that the smoke puts too many of these condensation nuclei, these seeds, into the atmosphere, so that we don't get as much water collecting on any one drop, on any one seed, and they stay hanging up in the sky. They don't fall together and merge into one big droplet. So when we put a lot of stuff into the atmosphere, it actually suppresses rainfall. We don't get nearly as much rain when we have heavy smoke days as when we have a moderate smoke day.
All that wildfire smoke caused another big problem. Take, for example, this flashlight. It represents the sunlight hitting our valley floor during the summer storm season. When all that wildfire smoke is in the atmosphere, look, it cuts down on the amount of sunlight hitting the valley floor. That means it cuts down on the rising warm air needed for thunderstorm development. Less rising warm air, less rainstorms.
10 years ago this summer, the big one hit Phoenix, one of the largest dust storms on record, piling dust a mile high into the atmosphere and stretching nearly across the entire width of the state. Of course, ground zero was the valley, where a young storm chaser named Michael Binsky got word of a storm that would change his life.
So I was practicing, the time lapse in the backyard, and someone texted me and said, hey, there's a big dust storm coming in from Santan. And I knew right where to go because I had scouted out this spot like a few weeks before.
Olbinski set up his gear on a downtown parking garage and watched the monster overtake the city.
I just literally couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, it was still coming over South Mountain, and as it just kept getting closer and closer, I just was astounded.
The dust storm went viral and Mike's phone started ringing nonstop.
When I was watching that and I saw this dust rolling across, the first word that came to mind, I'm like, this is a haboob if I've ever seen one. So when I posted that video, I said, massive haboob hits Phoenix. And since it went viral, that word was suddenly like mainstream on the nightly news.
His passion continued to grow, and Olbinski has become one of the top storm chasers not only in Arizona, but in the entire country.
I like to share weather with the world. It's kind of like, or with just people. And so that was kind of like an amazing moment, and it put me on a path that I, am still on today.
If you've driven between Phoenix and Tucson, it's easy to notice ADOT's new dust detection network. It's a 10-mile stretch between Eloy and Picacho Peak that warns drivers of dangerous driving conditions.
We have been planning this dust detection warning system for years, and we got it up and running just in advance of the monsoon, and that monsoon was a big dud.
Monsoon 2020 was a big dud for sure. The dust detection network was only triggered a few times last year. One advantage of the monsoon is it did give ADOT's engineers a chance to fine-tune the network and get it ready for this year's monsoon. The $72 million network they built is incredible. When a dust storm hits, they're able to change the speed limit and warn drivers with overhead message boards. They also have a large X-band radar that can detect storms 40 miles away.
When you're approaching the dust detection and warning system, it's important for drivers to pay attention to the signs. Please reduce your speed.
During the summer monsoon, the Sonoran Desert is notorious for blinding dust storms that roll up in the blink of an eye. Before you know it, you are in near zero visibility. And the worst place you can be during this time is in your car on the road. So what should you do if you find yourself on a road trip and a dust storm pops up? First thing you want to do is look around, make sure there's no traffic next to you, start to slow your speed and pull off on the side of the road as far as you can. The next thing you want to do is put your car into park and then hit your emergency brake. Take your foot off the brake pedal, turn off any lights. You don't want any cars to see your lights because they may think that they can follow you and may ultimately crash in the back of your vehicle. Finally, leave your seatbelt on, sit there, and wait for the dust storm to pass.
Flash floods strike without warning and threaten the lives of Arizonans every summer. Coming up, the intense training of the first responders who want to keep you alive. What's in a name? Centuries of use when it comes to the word monsoon. A look back at how our famous season got its start.
You're watching an Arizona's Weather Authority special, Monsoon 2021. You're watching an Arizona's Weather Authority special, Monsoon 2021.
Time now for a monsoon fast fact. Did you know as little as 6 inches of rushing water can begin to move a car? Flash flooding is a dangerous phenomenon that happens every year during the monsoon, which is why first responders with MCSO train on swift water rescue so they can be prepared to answer your calls for help.
They come around there, a trickle, then it's 10 feet of water that quick. This water could be 10 miles away, come ripping downstream.
It's a scenario seen all too often. A motorist drives through a flooded road and quickly becomes stranded in a raging river.
As these floodwaters change, your car could be going downstream. There's not time to do a lot of setup on this. We want to get right in and get them off before the car shifts or they fall off. They're unsteady, the car's unsteady.
The sheriff's office sends in air support, teaming up with firefighters who are attempting to rescue the victims from the ground.
So some of our biggest dangers are the swiftwater rescues, the flash floods, and there are a lot of areas where the streets cross low-lying washes that flood very quickly.
Time is of the essence as crews carry out a number of tactical maneuvers.
They would form up a team and actually try to wade across there, and they put themselves then in the danger of being washed away by those floodwaters or getting hit by debris.
Get out of there, get out of there, get out of there. There she goes.
Flash flooding might be more frequent this year thanks to 2020's record-breaking wildfire season in Arizona.
And anytime you have a major fire that strips away a lot of that vegetation that would keep that rain kind of in place or start to hold it, you're going to get a lot of runoff.
And it doesn't have to be raining in your line of sight for a flash flood to develop.
It's maybe just cloudy here, but up north a few miles, it's actually raining really hard. And all that water is coming down at a rapid pace and it's picking up debris
First responders are stressing everyone stay vigilant this summer.
If you see water, don't even go near it. It doesn't take much water to move a car off the road. And the road may be gone already. The water may have just shifted. There's no road down there.
If you don't follow the rules and you drive through a flooded road outside of MCSO jurisdiction, Arizona has a stupid motorist law, which means you could be forced to pay for your rescue up to $2,000.
Each day in the summer when we're doing the broadcast, we use the word monsoon a lot, and I mean a lot. And it's used in common conversation every day. But you know, it wasn't always that way. I was kind of curious, so I decided to dig into some really old newspapers to find the history of the word monsoon. Back in the 1700s, a British paper described India's monsoon during skirmishes with the French on India's coast. The Derby Mercury Sun noted that monsoon rains would make rivers impassable and destroy roads. Sounds familiar, huh? In the late 1800s, I found a mention of the monsoon in what was then called the Arizona Republican. The writer questioned whether the Salton Sea in California helped produce storms here. But many times, storm stories were just that. In this 1917 storm report in Phoenix, it didn't mention the monsoon at all, just familiar, ferocious, and damaging winds. In the past 60 years, the word has become more common in our storm lexicon. In this 1968 Republic article, it asks the question many of you ask each summer: where are our monsoon rains? Eventually, our monsoon moniker made its way into the advertising world with Monsoon Madness deals. And these days, you don't need to look far to find the word monsoon. It's even in local beer. Phoenix Beer Co. has a seasonal brew, their Monsoon IPA. What a wonderful way to remind us of the season we love so much. Cheers.
Can we expect impressive storms or a long, dry summer? Our monsoon forecast is just moments away.
You're watching an Arizona's Weather Authority special, Monsoon 2021. You're watching an Arizona's Weather Authority special, Monsoon 2021.
Did you know that an active monsoon day can produce 100,000 lightning flashes across Arizona, and the average monsoon storm lasts between 30 to 60 minutes?
While there were early indications a strong monsoon was developing for 2021, that's apparently not the case. As a result, we've defaulted to a forecast with warmer than normal and drier than normal conditions. The farther east in the state you are, the less rain you can expect compared to the norms. When storms are on the horizon, we've got you covered from sunup to sundown.
We start early every morning, every day of the week.
Surveying the latest weather information, looking for those subtle signs of storms.
We'll get you ready. Monsoon day ahead.
And when the dust starts flying, that's when we jump into action.
Tracking storms that could impact your drive home.
Using street-level radar in your neighborhood to keep you safe.
And make sure to download the Arizona's Family mobile app to get notifications about weather alerts and rain totals in your neighborhood.
On behalf of Arizona's Weather Authority, thanks for watching Monsoon 2021.